Hi, I'm Vivian Hodges.
I'm Claire Bartlett.
And I'm Molly Mason.
And we're here with U.S. History
Crash Course.
Everybody loves rock music. When you first think of it, you think of the band's Journey, Led Zeppelin, or the Rolling Stones. But where is it that rock music came from? It is people like Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley from the 1950s that helped make rock music what it is today.
The 1950s were a time of change for everyone. World War II had just ended, the civil rights movement was starting up, and rock music was introduced to the world.
Everyone was changing in the 1950s, especially the younger generation and teenagers.
Before the 1950s, when World War II was taking place, kids were expected to help their moms around the house or even serve in the war themselves. But after the World War II and the baby boom generation was coming, the role of teenagers in society changed completely. They were going back to school and they could now make their own money, which they bought in forms of entertainment such as music.
School dances were becoming popular in the 50s, as shown in Back to the Future when Marty plays a popular 50s song by Chuck Berry. Children began listening to rock music. They thought that they had more freedom, and which caused tension between the parents and the children. The parents thought the music was too sexual and even tried to get it banned from radio stations.
One of the artists the parents hated the most was the king himself, Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was born in Mississippi, but then moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where he claimed the title as the king. In 1956, his career skyrocketed, where he was in 33 films, and he signed to the big label company RVA, where he made his first number one single, Heartbreak Hotel, which was on the charts as number one for a long time.
Not only was Elvis popular for just music, he was also popular for his dance moves, especially the hip thrust. Parents disliked this because they thought it was inappropriate and too sexual, but teenage girls happily disagreed.
Elvis was a large sex symbol at this time, and he represented sexual liberation, which many people thought is a danger to society and very controversial.
Even the adults thought the singer was a sex-craved pervert, corrupting their youth.
Sexuality was a very controversial subject throughout the 1950s and 1960s, and when Elvis came along and rock and roll music was introduced, kids were starting to challenge their sexual desires, and parents tried to stop anything from them doing that.
Not only was Elvis a symbol of sexual liberation, he was also very helpful in the civil rights movement among the African Americans.
Rock music originated from African American cultures, and Elvis made it accessible for white teenagers who had never been exposed to this kind of music before.
Elvis' popularity increased the opportunities for African Americans both inside and outside of the industry, which had a positive effect on racial relations, particularly in the South. Whether Elvis knew it or not, he was paving the way for integration.
Since his music was influenced by African American culture, it was harder for parents to let their children listen to the music.
Elvis created this generation that was allowed to have the freedom of expression. Presley's music allowed for teenagers to have their own sense of identity and differ from their parents.
Elvis's music became a cultural phenomenon, and his concerts were integrated, which helped the civil rights movement, which ultimately granted African Americans human rights.
Throughout his career, Elvis had starred in 33 movies, been nominated for 14 Grammys, and sold 1 billion records worldwide, which was the most any artist has ever done.
Not only was Elvis a great singer, but he also served in the U.S. Army. He died at the age of 42 in his home in Memphis, Graceland, in 1977. Not only was Elvis loved by his fans, but he was also loved by other African American artists such as Little Richard for help setting the African American civil rights movement.
Little Richard was known as the Georgia Peach, and he became famous for his flamboyant style of dress.
With his towering hair and multicolored clothes that reflected a teasing sexuality.
He was so famous that he was later put in a Geico commercial.
Denise Basic is a real Geico customer, not a paid celebrity. So to help tell her story, we hired a celebrity.
It was Thanksgiving night when I accidentally hit a deer.
Whoa, look out! Look out!
I called Geico expecting to get a recording, but someone was there to help me.
Help me! Somebody help me!
Geico got my claim in the works right away, and I was actually able to enjoy my Thanksgiving.
Mashed potatoes, gravy, and cranberry sauce!
Geico. Real service, real savings.
Little Richard was also famous for doing covers of songs made by white artists.
While many people saw Elvis Presley as the king of rock, the singer Chuck Berry was regarded as one of the leading pioneers of rock music.
Chuck Berry is from St. Louis, Missouri, and he is most famous for his song Johnny Be Good. In 1962, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison on the charge of transporting a minor across state lines for immoral purposes. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986.
Chuck Berry was most famous for blending the blues with country music and added a rhythm and blues beat, and he thought by many to be the inventor of the rock music form. His distinctive playing of the electric guitar and his witty lyrics were a major inspiration for the English pop renaissance and for a wide variety of other rock musicians. He was a dynamic performer, and he also became known for his signature crouching and gliding duck walk. As in the movie Grease with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, it shows that the songs in that time period were based a lot on romance and cars. But that was not the most important thing in the 1950s. The civil rights movement was coming around, and the era of its suburbanization had a big and significant role in the 1950s.
Rock music has developed a lot since the 1950s, and it had a huge impact on the culture of the 1950s.
Rock music changed society, and singers like Elvis, Chuck Berry, and Little Richard became extremely famous in this time and are still some of the most popular singers today. Thanks for watching Crash Course US History.
Give us a subscribe
And click that like button
for
Rock and
more.
roll.
Yeah.